Between two cars on Auto Trader right now. Will we bring the car to your home if you don't love it? Then I will go to first. Can you drop off Tuesday? Today is Tuesday.
Find dealers offering home services.
Good day.
Hey, Peter. Hey, Ann. Hey,
Uh,
Jen. Everyone.
Hi, Christine. Hi, Peter again.
Yep, here we are. The tap
Good
dancing will be continuous.
Yes. Hi, Jennifer.
Hmm. Hey, Christine,
Yes, Peter.
question. Is Karen managing the slides for or are you doing that?
I think I'm going to be managing the slides.
Okay.
And so,
So when we get to the site analysis 10 through 12,
yep,
is it possible to go briefly to 10, go up, look at 11 and 12 and go back to 10?
absolutely.
Okay, because I'd like to go from just mentioning where it is, just show the two maps, and then go back to the list of what it is, if that's okay.
Absolutely. Sure.
Okay, great. Hi, Karen.
Good evening. Hi, everybody.
Hey, Karen.
Okay. Right, no, we're,
Hi, Jen. Welcome back. Hi, Christine. Hi, Karen.
Hello there.
Thank you. You put together a good presentation.
It's a team effort.
Well, hello to the world. Seems everybody is silent, sitting here looking at each other. So, hello, hello. We're almost at the end of Zoom.
Hang on, Zoom.
Hi.
Hi, David.
Hey there. I am.
I'm sitting outside on my porch, so if I leave my audio on, you might hear some bird calls. We have a crow that's behind me making all kinds of noise. We'll see what happens. Little nature surrounding us.
All natural.
Okay, it's 6:02 and I'm going to go ahead and get started. I know there's more people coming into the room and Jen's letting them in, but I think we want to get rolling. I'm going to give a little background and introduction. My name is Janet Widener. I'm a member of the Chilmark Planning Board and also a member of something called the Chilmark Planning Board Subcommittee. A number of years ago, we realized that sometimes on the planning board, it makes sense to put in place a subcommittee to do research on certain areas, have meetings, have the public come to the meetings, gather data, and then do a lot of the legwork and bring that back to the larger planning board. We did something like that for the big house bylaw quite a number of years ago. We've done it for other things like master planning. So this issue of Peaked Hill property is one that we formed a subcommittee for. There are 7 members of the planning board. 4 of us are on the subcommittee. They're all here tonight. Myself, Peter Cook, Kathy Thompson, and Ann Wallace. The chair of the planning board, Rich Osnos, is here tonight as well. He quite often sits in on our subcommittee meetings. And we have 2 other planning board members as well. And I don't know if they're here or not because I can't see all the faces, but they're Hugh Weissman and Mitch Bozen. In any event, the subcommittee is looking into what the town might do with the Peaked Hill property with regards to affordable housing. To that end, we've had some discussions with Christine Flynn of the MVC, who's a planner who we've worked with before on a number of areas. Christine brings a lot of resources to bear that help us as a town to get some things done. In this particular case, Christine arranged for us through something called Delta funding. And I can't remember what Delta stands for, but she applied for a grant and was able to hire a housing and planning consultant to work with us to try to facilitate discussion among us as a town so we can come up with a plan for how we want to move forward with Peaked Hill. The planner, Karen Sonnerborg, is someone some of you might have come across before. Although she doesn't live here on the island, she has worked with many of the towns here on housing needs assessments and production plans. So she knows her stuff and she knows the island, which is great. And she's been able to hit the ground running. What we have tonight are a set of slides. We're doing kind of a tag team thing. I'm going to present a few. Peter Cook from the subcommittee is going to present some. Karen's going to present some. What we'd like to do is move through the slides, ask everyone to mute their microphones. And if you have questions, if you can hold them to the end, we would appreciate it. If you want to use the comment thing down below and write in a comment or a question, you can. The purpose of these meetings, this is the first of 3. The purpose of these meetings is to try to do community engagement, to feel out the town, interested parties, abutters, get an idea of what people would like to see, what they don't want to see, and so on. So that the key thing is discussion, and that's what's going to come at the end of our presentation. And that's what we're really looking forward to getting tonight. And we're already up to 35 people on the call, which I think is great. I really do. A couple of other housekeeping things. We have some questions that we'd like to start with. Just to get a sense of who's in the audience. And Jen Christie, our admin, is going to try to tally the data if we can do it. We're not exactly sure. This meeting's being recorded, so she may have to go back later on and dig through it all. But we did have some questions. If people could answer either by, I don't know how familiar you all are with Zoom, but there's that reactions thing in the lower right, and you can click on that to give an answer. The first question is, are you a year-round resident of the island? And you can do a yes or a no. I guess you can do either one. So let's just say, I don't know, are you a year-round resident? Check yes if you are, no if you're not. Okay, I don't know how well that's working, but we're going to keep trying it. Another question was, do you live in Chilmark or do you live in another island town? So I guess yes is at Chilmark and no is another island town. And Jen, are you able to keep track of like what answers came in at what time and correlate that to anything?
I will be able to get the information from the recording. And just so you know, it's thumbs up or thumbs down. There's no.
Okay. Oh, okay, good. Oh, I saw it on the thing. It says yes and no, but I guess it is the up and down. Okay, and I see people's thumbs going up, electronic thumbs. Do you currently own or rent your home? So I guess if the answer is own, I'd give a thumbs up, and I guess rent would be a down. And then we're trying to assess the age. So I'll just say under 30. If anybody's under 30, if they can stick a thumb up.
Is it under 30 or over 30?
Under 30. And then we've got a few more categories coming. All right, next one is 31 to 50.
Barely made that.
Okay, and then 51 to 64. And then over 65 is the last category. Okay. With that, if we can put the slides up, Jen, can you put them up from your computer? We didn't talk about that ahead of time.
Sure. Christine and I talked about it, and Christine is going to share her screen
Oh, okay.
through her computer.
Thank you. Thanks, Christine.
How's it for a new house?
Janet, if Christine has any trouble, I can try sharing from my screen as well.
Okay.
Just give me one moment.
Oh, no problem.
Sorry about that.
There's a comment that the responses cannot be done on a phone, so that some are responding by chat.
Okay. Thanks, Rich. Here we go. Okay. So like I said, we have a fairly short slide presentation to provide background information, how we got here. What we really want is to use this as an opportunity to start discussion with the community or continue discussion that we've had at some of our subcommittee meetings. I would also like to point out that before this meeting, when the announcement was posted, it's posted on the town website. There's a way that people can send in letters of support or up or down, yes or no on the project. Our town clerk, Jen Christie, our admin, received 5 letters from the community supporting the concept of a development in the Peaked Hill Pastures property. If this were a public hearing, we would read those letters out loud. It isn't a public hearing, but I want to assure everyone that if you do send a letter in support of the Peaked Hill Pastures development or against it, we will be keeping track of that, and Jen will publish those in the minutes that we put together following each of these 3 community engagement sessions. So this is the first of 3 sessions. The next one is going to be the end of July. The third one will be the end of September. I think the dates are up on the town website or will be shortly. All of these sessions are also being recorded. So if anybody wants to go back and look at what was talked about or discussed, that'll be possible to do. As I said earlier, the planning board is working this effort. We've had great input from the Affordable Housing Committee, and we have the backing of the Chilmark Select Board, who would very much like to see something happen on Peaked Hill with regard to affordable and community housing. Can you go to the next slide, Christine? So this is just a very high level background on the property. members of the subcommittee are listed there. We've already talked about that a bit. We have support from other local leaders, i.e. the selectmen and the MVC. The map on the right is hard to see in a lot of detail, but basically the town property are those two lots that have green writing on them. It's a 6 point something acre and another one just below it. So a total of 16.7 acres. That is the property under discussion and is what's called Peaked Hills Pastures. Over on the right-hand side is Tabor House Road, which is, and the pasture road brings you in from Tabor House Road to the property. If anyone is not familiar with exactly where it is. At this point, the town, it's largely undeveloped land. The highway department does have a shack and equipment storage in the lower right-hand side, which is that brown kind of square. And then there's also the softball field, the Chilmark softball field where the Sunday games have been going on for years. And that's in the upper half of those two pieces of property. You'll hear a lot more about this property when we get to Peter's slides, and there'll be talk of how it was analyzed by civil engineers to identify what is possible to be done with the property. So this is just a brief intro on the property. Next slide, Christine, please. More background. This is a list of studies that have been done that are pertinent to this project. Some of them are island-wide studies, the 2009 island plan, an island housing assessment, and zoning analysis. The last three documents are pertinent specifically to Chilmark and/or the Peaked Hill Pastures property. Of note is the Peaked Hill Pastures Committee, which convened in 2018. It was peopled with members of the community in Chilmark. There was a selectman on it, abutters, interested townspeople, and they had a series of meetings over almost a year period. And they came back out of that with a series of recommendations to the select board as to what they thought the most appropriate mixture of uses would be for the property. And as you can see, there's 4 listed there. There's housing and different types mentioned: affordable, workforce, multi-income, multi-generational. There's also recreation uses that the committee felt were important. I mean, the most significant one that we all talk about is the baseball field. I think that's something that the town feels strongly about. There could be other recreational uses as well. The third recommendation of the Peaked Hill Pastures Committee was open space, which could be used for a variety of things: pasture land, community gardens, etc. And then the last one was potential space for future development. And I think the sense is that perhaps we don't wish to develop all of our assets at once. There's been a lot of talk about uses for this property over the years, and I think the feeling is let's do some development, but hang on to some for a future generation. So I think that's really what the potential space for future development talks to. Next slide, please, Christine. So this is kind of where we're headed. A small neighborhood development. We're discussing a mix of rental and home ownership units. Those are the kind of things we want to get feedback from the community on. What type of housing would like to be seen there? Multi-generational, mix of incomes, attention to senior housing needs. We always talk about how we're an elderly community here in Chilmark, and we want to look to addressing the needs of everyone across the board. And then the last one is the sense of community and our rural nature. And this is something that means a lot to all of us who live here. I mean, for example, the baseball field. It sounds kind of quirky, but it's something that's important to us. And I think we want to keep our community feel and our small town feel as we go forward. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Peter, who's following behind me, I believe.
No, me
It's
next.
Karen, sorry,
Yeah.
here she
That's-
comes.
That's fine. So the next few slides that I'm going to go over are pretty basic. And I am going to try to move through them swiftly. As mentioned, we really want to get to the meat of the matter and discussion, as well as the rest of the presentation. Some of you are already expert in this, but just to provide some background, we just kind of provide some summary information on what is affordable housing. There are different definitions. You know, the one definition that's pretty basic and has been kind of used in various programs is HUDs, which basically says if you are spending more than 30% of your income on housing costs, whether it be rental or home ownership, you're living in housing that's not affordable and you have cost burdens. The definition we hear most about is the one under Chapter 40B. And we often refer to these affordable units as the capitally affordable. And in order for a unit to be counted by the state as part of what's called the Subsidized Housing Inventory, SHI, it has to meet a number of requirements. One is it has to be affordable to households earning at or below 80% of area median income. And based on the 2021 income limits for Dukes County, an example for a household of one, the income limit is $59,200. For a household of three, goes up to $76,100. Units also have to be permanent. They have to be subsidized by some public entity, or they have to be approved by a subsidizing agency. For example, a 40B comprehensive permit. Before the developer can apply for a comprehensive permit with the ZBA, it has to get the go-ahead from some one of a few state agencies. The units have to be deed restricted, and we're moving more and more towards in perpetuity for as long a period of time as possible. And they have to be affirmatively marketed. So those who live outside of the community have an opportunity to learn about the opportunity and a chance to apply. There are no SHI units in Chilmark right now. However, there were some affordable units produced as part of the Middle Road project, but because the units didn't meet all of the prescribed requirements under 40B, they're not part of the state-approved SHI. And what was mentioned in the previous slide, the little a affordable, while there might be a focus on those earning at or below 80% of area median income, looking at a wider range of incomes, it makes sense to potentially think about those who are earning over that 80% threshold, but still cannot effectively compete in the in Chilmark's nor the island's private housing market. Next slide. At the end of 2020, Martha's Vineyard Commission produced a housing needs assessment with some updated information, island-wide and by town. And there's a lot of detail in that particular document. I'm just going to point to a couple of the key takeaways. I'm not even going to deal with the charts today, but I recommend if you're interested in any more this details on these kind of points, to please refer to that document. Chilmark, the population is about 1,222 year-round residents. The Massachusetts Department of Transportation and University of Massachusetts Donahue Institute have projected that there might be a population loss experienced by the town between 2010 and 2040. They're estimating a 60% loss. But population projections are difficult in communities, areas where there's a high level retirement, folks and seasonal populations and housing units. So we'll see how that pans out. About 20% of the residents are seniors age 65 plus, which is a little lower than the island-wide level of 22%. I should mention that a lot of these figures have come from the 2019 census estimates. Higher median income levels for Chilmark. Median household income almost $100,000 compared to 71,811 island-wide. Next slide. As to housing, total of 1,665 housing units, 71% of which are seasonal or second homes. And that's higher than the island-wide level of 60%. 93 or about 20% of the 456 occupied year-round units are rentals. And that is about half of the island-wide level of 38%. And not surprisingly, almost all units are single-family detached homes. There's not a lot of housing diversity in the community. And next, housing costs are high. What a surprise, huh? The median single-family home price, and this is through Banker and Tradesman, as of April 2021 was almost $2 million. And that's up from about 1.5 million for 2020. Island-wide figure as of April 2021 was $1 million, up from $960,000 in 2020. If you look at Chilmark's relatively high median household income, and you look at that 30% affordability threshold for housing costs, and you factor in some other assumptions, came by an affordable price for median income earning household of $557,000. So looking at the typical definition of affordability gap, the difference between the median single family home price and what a median income earning household can afford comes down to a stunning $1,380,500. Rents are also high in the neighborhood of, say, $3,000 for a 2-bedroom apartment. And to be able to afford the $3,000 apartment requires an income of about $128,000. And that's assuming some average utility costs, as well as that not spending more than 30% of income on housing costs. And in comparison, the median income of renter households in Chilmark was $43,750. Clearly we've got a lot of cost burden households in the community. Next slide. The Housing Needs Assessment really made an effort to provide documentation on the impacts of COVID-19 on a range of areas and issues on the vineyard. In general, COVID basically took out whatever inventory was available and raised the prices substantially. Renters who were here for the season, many decided to extend their stay. And even those who went back, there were other renters wanting to be able to stay in finding a safe retreat in their minds from the pandemic. Likewise, second homeowners decided, based on being able to work remotely and have their children attend school remotely, to stay on the vineyard instead of renting their homes. Investment properties were also sold. A result was a greatly reduced supply of winter rentals, which a lot of workers have relied on in prior years. They're basically talking about a real imbalance of supply and demand. Next slide. Now, Peter's going to take over and talk about some of the site conditions.
Thank you. I also wanted just to recognize that through Christine Flynn and the Martha Vineyard Commission, we were able to get this site analysis by Vineyard Land Surveying financed. So they made that possible and helped us move along much more rapidly than we would have been able to otherwise. I'd like to, as Janet said, as we've said, this is town-owned property located off Pasture Road, off of Tabor House Road. I'd like to just go ahead to slide 11, the next slide, and just to look at the map again. This is what the aerial view of this, and you see the sort of bare spot along the upper slide is where the ball field is, and the areas that we're talking about that we've been considering for development are basically the two lots on the right-hand side. There are there's a little some wetlands down at the base of this that are at some remove, but the area that we've been focusing on to date is primarily these two lots up here. And the next slide shows, I think, where perk tests were made. It's sort of, you see where the ball field is. And again, we're looking at this right-hand side for development. And if we could go back to the slide 10, that would be great. This is, as Janet said, more or less our marching orders for at least what we've been considering for the past year has been working with the notion that although, as the site analysis said, there might be allowed 72 bedrooms on this site under certain circumstances, the difference between what might be allowed and what is appropriate for the community is there's quite a gap there. And we've been pursuing the idea that we would develop less than half of this for housing, at least at this time, and that the other purposes that were considered would be in play. So the other thing that I would say is, in addition to what you see in the list here, is that the part of the property that we're looking at is also just sort of anecdotally is the part of the property that is best suited, it seems to be the best suited from the point of view of perk tests and terrain and so forth for housing. So that's really all we need to look at the moment, because what is really going to be of interest is what you all have to say about this and what your reactions are to what you've heard so far. Thank you.
So I'm back. The planning board, as you've heard, has been working on this project for quite some time, and looking at what it considered might work for the site, as well as what might work for the community. They've been in the process of conducting some due diligence on development options. Clearly, the site engineering and tests were an important element of that. They have been exploring effective project models and best practices, and we're going to continue to do that throughout the summer to inform some decisions down the road. This property represents a real opportunity in the context of substantial housing needs, not only in Chilmark, but across the island. So there's an opportunity to try to address a real mix of housing needs, including some mixed ages and mixed incomes and mixed tenure. The idea is also to be, smart about the development and to cluster housing or pocket neighborhoods that will enable a good part of the parcel to be preserved as open space, really focusing on the most buildable areas of the site for development. And there's been some real interest in being innovative, looking at best practices to come up with creative approaches to housing sustainability and resiliency. Also, in this series of community engagement sessions, evidence that there's a real interest in ensuring that residents, including abutters, have a real say in project planning. Fundamentally adding to the diversity and affordability of the housing stock, looking how best to leverage local resources by reaching out for other sources of public and private financing to make the project feasible, and preserving the baseball park field is important too. Ultimately, planning board's interested in providing some guidance to a developer who would be responsive to the priorities that the town has, and through this process of getting input on what will potentially work on the site, and to find a developer who has real experience, a proven track record in developing other comparable projects. Next slide. So we're really looking for input on your perspectives on the challenges and the needs and opportunities for this particular property. And why don't we start out, if there are thoughts that participants might have about pressing concerns or challenges that they'd like to make sure the planning board was aware. What's the process? If somebody wants to provide it, they just go into hands up, raise hands?
Yeah, I mean, it might be good to put the slide package down, and then we could see, we might be able to see people and see if they've got a hand up. I don't know if that
Sure.
works best. I do see Valerie Sonnenthal. You've got a hand up.
Hi, I guess I'm the closest abutter, actually, and I love the creation of a pocket neighborhood. It's something that I guess I'm more familiar with in Europe than I am here, because there's a lot of planned pocket neighborhoods where everyone also receives a garden plot, and there's a community garden that's part and parcel, which would be a nice thing, since farming and gardening is kind of essential to most people I know who live here. And that is a way of, also creating more communities, since it is a common area and people can share things there. And I think that the need both for young families on this island, as well as workforce and seniors, I think multi-age is essential, actually. Certainly, I know many seniors, particularly in Chilmark, who've had to sell their houses and weren't even able to find a rental that met their needs on the island and were forced to leave. And so those kinds of things, to have something that is small, that maybe is in the place that holds your heart, that you could potentially move to when you sell your house, or that there is a certain amount set aside for seniors, I think would be great, because I just see that that's a need that exists here. Everybody can't afford to keep a house if you have no children or whatever, that you're alone and maybe having a roommate at your age is not what you want to get into, but having something that is very manageable is. And that it is part of a community. So already people are looking out for each other. I look forward to this, and I hope other people who are near me and in the community feel very supportive of this project as it moves ahead. And I think there's been a lot of consideration taken up to this point that communicates that. So thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Valerie. Lindsay, you've got a hand up? Lindsay Scott?
Yeah, thank you, Janet. Lindsay Scott here. We are also neighbors of this proposed development and in total support of the concept that you've presented. I want to thank the committee for doing so much legwork to introduce the concept to the wider community, and I look forward to seeing this all be more refined. My question, if you guys could just clarify a little bit more about the thinking, is the thinking that the proposed development would happen all at one time by an identified contractor, or that the individual pieces, in whatever they are divided, would be independently developed?
I'll take a crack at that, and other people might want to jump in from the committee, but I think to some extent it depends on what we end up doing. I mean, if it ends up being rental property, then I would think we would do it all at once. It kind of makes sense to do it that way, to bring someone in. If it's a mix of home ownership and rental, then it could be a mixed bag. You know, we do the rental at once. Then it becomes a question of the home-owned properties. Do we, the town, build them, or do we give someone the lot? So that isn't a very conclusive answer, but it seems like those are the possibilities. If it's all rental, it's done at once. And if it's a mix, it depends on whether the town builds the houses or the individual lot recipients do. One of the things that we hope to address at the next session, the end of July, is to take a look at some of the other developments that exist on island, to see if we can gain some lessons there. For example, Smalley's Knoll up in Aquina. I believe the town built those houses. There's a development in West Tisbury that I can't for the life of me remember the name of, but it's the one near the firehouse on the road near the airport. I believe it's all rental, and that's another model we might want to look at. Scotts Grove, thank you. So these kinds of things, the direction we're heading in will refine over time, and that'll be a good part of the topic the next go around, is what the mix might be and how we might get there.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Janet, is that we want to look at the range of options and see what's going to be most feasible, continuing to get input from folks through these sessions and elsewhere. So next session will be important.
I don't see any other hands up. I'm just paging through.
Warren Doty.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Warren.
Speaking from the select board's point of view, we're very encouraged by this presentation, and the concept of a pocket development is really good. I guess just personally, I would think that some number of units in the neighborhood of 9 to 12 is a nice number, and that seems to come out to something on the order of 25 or 30 bedrooms, which would be half of the wastewater capacity as the survey has indicated. So something along that line. And I would urge it to include, Chilmark has been very successful with home ownership projects, youth lots, and resident home sites. And I'd like to see at least some part of this development to include some home ownership for, maybe it's 2 lots or 3 or some, some percentage. I know that rental housing is the greatest need, but preserving some units for home ownership, I think, would be very nice. And I know we have some people on this Zoom who have been looking for a resident home site for some number of years and have applied when we've done this before. And so I think I'm very encouraged by this. I would urge it to be somewhere in the 9 to 12 units, which I think is very similar to Scotts Grove in West Tisbury. And I would also comment from the financial point of view. We recently, the town of Chilmark recently sold a piece of land which we could have used for affordable housing, but we thought it wasn't in an appropriate place. But we took the proceeds of the sale, which is $780,000, and put it into our Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And we also have been going kind of slow on our CPC, Community Preservation Act spending, because we're waiting for this project. So we have been accumulating a significant amount of money, probably in the neighborhood of $2 million, which could, be a kind of a down payment on this project. And so from the select board's point of view, we have some money to get started. And then if we add bank financing in with our down payment of $2 million, we could really do something.
Thank you, Warren.
Could I say something?
Yes.
My name is William Cumming. I live on Menemption Road, and I'm quite familiar with the town's affordable housing situation, given that we have 0.0, arguably the wealthiest town by property values, and we have the least amount of affordable housing in the state. So what's my point? There are 3 reasons to support this. I think it's an excellent presentation, but we're not doing enough. Under the existing HHI inventory, we have a need to produce 46 units to comply with the law. And if we don't do that, developers will be coming. And the reason this is important is there's 3 reasons. 1, we owe it to our businesses and our families in town. 2, morally, we have the resources to do this, and we're obliged under the state law. And ultimately, 3, I care about keeping my property taxes as low as they are. And there is an effective way to do this without focusing on youth lots and market rate lots. There's an optimization that I think we need to look at to get the best benefit, to get the most number of units on the inventory. And if you look at, and if you realize legally we're supposed to have 46 units, and by the way, I don't agree with the projections of the population. If you look at what's happened with COVID and people relocating for tax reasons and so on, I think those numbers, which are about to come out, the last time they were updated was 10 years ago, and the census numbers are about to come out. I believe we're going to be going much higher to 50 or 60 units under the law. And if we don't do it as a town, which I think there's the 3 reasons I mentioned, which is we owe it to our businesses and our locals. We owe it morally, and ultimately, if we don't do it, developers are going to come. And if they do come, they're going to build 200 new homes in the town under the law. They'll be able to build 200 homes. And I think we will lose control of the process. Last year, Nantucket approved $20 to $30 million just to buy homes because developers were slaughtering them with 40B applications and changing the character out of control. And I don't want to see us get there. And I am focused on also keeping my taxes where they are efficiently.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, William. Good points. Laura Silber, you've got a hand up?
I do, but I think I'd like to let David speak ahead of me. I was going to actually speak to the similar to what William just said about the inventory and the SHI, but I'd like to hear what David has to say first, and then I'll speak.
Okay.
Thanks, Laura. Thank you, Janet. All I wanted to add was, I think you made the point initially about preserving options for future generations. And Warren speaks to that as well, in another way, talking about ownership. The only thing I think we can all recognize and realize how significant the changes of COVID have been on housing. There's nobody on this call who doesn't know there are no rentals available, and home ownership is certainly out of reach of most of us. I would just repeat a point that I've made in a wonderful Oak Bluffs planning process as well. And I've enjoyed and appreciated this process in town now for a few years. It's been wonderful to listen in and be called in here and there in front of the planning board, as well as a selectman on this very important opportunity. And that point is very simply that if we, in a number of years, we won't be preserving people who are here. We will be creating units that'll be very much needed for the folks that we need to employ in town hall, the post offices, and what have you. So, with respect, if 70 bedrooms are carried on this site, then that's what we should be shooting for. If you're holding land back, absolutely, but start the planning now. If you want to look at ownership, look at the turnkey work, as you mentioned, Janet. A good example, Smalley's Knoll. I believe at this point, Chilmark is the last town to stick with resident home sites versus the turnkey efforts. And the only point to be made there is you can address a variety of middle incomes with turnkey versus NABs in the last couple of efforts, which have been up to 150% for all the reasons that we can guess. It's hard to finance. It's hard to be a one-off builder. I did that. Good luck finding contractors and subs right now, right? So if the town goes that way, I hope they'll invest in that for those residents who will need that. In the meantime, stabilize the folks you've got here right now. Rental, rental, rental. And thank you.
Thank you, David. Laura, do you want to add to that?
The only thing I want to add is that, first of all, I want to thank the town of Chilmark for opening this up and for holding these meetings. I'm assuming there's going to be more. This is fantastic. So many people have been asking our group, CCMVHB, what is Chilmark planning on doing? Because there is 0 SHI right now in the town of Chilmark. So it's wonderful to see this and be on the call, and we'll definitely provide this information to the public. And I just want to emphasize what William said and what David said about the need to really plan on developing the maximum number of bedrooms you can fit on this property, because it's better for Chilmark to have control over what the development looks like rather than opening it up to 40B. And so I would really urge you guys to consider that. And I also hope the town's considering nitrogen mitigation, because you can really maximize the amount of bedrooms you can get on that property. There are plenty of models that have really attractive multifamily units that look like single family houses. And that's a really great way to create a pocket neighborhood that looks like a traditional rural neighborhood. So if that's a consideration for Chilmark, I'm assuming that's why you're trying to minimize the number of freestanding buildings on the property. But I would really encourage you guys to look at multifamily homes so it can look like those single farmhouses, but house, more than one family. And then you can really maximize your number of units that you can get in there.
Okay. No, great ideas. Thank you. And that has been a discussion for us, those issues. So thank you. I don't see any other hands, but Sarah Glazer?
Yeah, this is just an administrative question. Since I came in late, when will it be possible to get the recording of the presentation that you made today?
I'm going to put Jan Christie, our admin, on the spot and ask her to answer that question.
No problem. I will have it up tomorrow morning.
Great. On the Chilmark website?
That's right.
Website? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So it'll be in there's a section there for the Peaked Hill Pastures project, but also on the planning board page.
Okay.
Thank you. Mindy?
Hi. First of all, thank you so much for everyone who's put their time in. This is a big project. And I'm going to try to find my words. I have a couple of questions, but first of which I think it's really important, and David touched on it a little bit. I think it's really important that you preserve opportunities for people who are here now. So many of organizations on the island, whether it's the hospital or the post office or the schools and teachers and restaurants, they're recruiting and they're looking for people because people here don't have housing, and multi-generational families who are born and bred and have been living here for years, they're needing to leave, and their children are coming back and they can't find a place to live, to work in the community. I know that there's some affordable buying opportunities on the island that are deed restricted, and anyone can apply. You can apply for them if you live off island. And I guess I'm just curious whether or not it's been, if you've decided whether it's going to be a lottery system, whether it's going to be a weighted lottery, whether it matters how long you've lived on the island, whether you've worked in the community, or is it the number that you are on the waiting list, whether it's renting or buying, combined with income? Has there been any?
I think we're not even close to that point yet.
I'm all over the map with questions, but.
No, I mean, I am aware of those kinds of things from when we did Middle Line Road and Nabbs Corner, but I don't think we've addressed them. Karen, you had kind of a hand up. Did you?
Well, I was just going to say, probably the easiest way to permit the units is through a Chapter 40B. And if you're, going to have the units as part of the subsidized housing inventory, you have to go through, straight requirements, which would involve the lottery. It would also, set aside up to 70% of the units for those who have a local connection, either they live or work in Chilmark. So that would be kind of the typical process that would make sense in this context.
Okay.
And Mindy, you said you had more questions.
I think those, that's all I got.
Okay, well, stay tuned because things are going to keep evolving and we'll have more answers, or we'll identify more answers.
Thank you.
Nettie, I saw your laptop had a hand up.
It does, and I apologize that my screen is blank. I have two crying naked toddlers running around that I don't want to subject anybody to. But I did want to speak to this. I want to echo what some people have said. And I really want to push for a mix of home ownership and rental. And why I really want to push for home ownership is that as someone who's lucky enough to have a year-round housing in Chilmark, it is rental. And my family might not be able to stay in Chilmark because the renting is no longer a stepping stone to home ownership. What we saw this past year, there's even families making decent money can't afford to buy anything in this town. And by, decent money, I mean, like we're surviving, but any chances of home ownership have just been wiped out. And I don't want to stay a renter for the rest of my life. And I love where I live, but it's not my house. And renting feels transient in a way, even if you're there for years. And I can speak to that as someone who's rented here for years. So I just hope that we do give some options of home ownership. And there are ways, there's new modular homes that are incredibly energy efficient. I've done a lot of research into them. They can be passive, net zero, they can be solar. It's incredible what the new modular homes and kit homes are doing. And I just think we should allow for some home ownership, even if it's a small percentage. People that grew up in this town and on this island, they want to own a home. And that opportunity has just been taken from us. So I just wanted to put that in there. And I know we have a need for rentals, and I completely understand that. And I want that as well, but I hope we allow some home ownership opportunities.
Okay, Thank you, Nettie, very much. Warren, you've got a hand up?
Yes, I just wanted to, the comment on zoning and aggressive, unattractive 40B applications. We haven't had any in the town of Chilmark up till now. And I feel that we have a lot of control so that while the state would say that, yes, we're open to 40B development, but we have a planning board and a ZBA and strong zoning rules that I think I don't see the threat of having an unattractive 40B developer jump in and do things in the town of Chilmark. I think we have controls over that. That's just maybe I'm too optimistic, but that's what I think. And I know that we have no units that qualify as SHI units, but we have actually, had a lot of housing opportunities for young people in the town through resident home sites and through, middle line road housing. And so it's not as bad as having no units whatsoever. We just didn't qualify them under this, system. And anyway, there's my comments.
Thanks, Warren. Pamela, you've got a hand up?
Yes, thank you. And again, I just want to thank everybody for this meeting. I'm new to all of this housing stuff, so I'm just kind of trying to learn, but I do totally agree with Nettie. I do think that there should be some sort of private home buying allowed or private houses. The thing I just want to throw out there, and I really don't know how to put this into words, so maybe some of the people that are more experienced might understand what I'm trying to say, but I listened to you say, 46 units, 9 to 12 units, you're kind of guesstimating what you can do with that. But I'm wondering, is there a way that you could find out, because there are people on this island that are willing to finance affordable housing. So would it be possible to see who's out there that's available to afford a house or what that range looks like, and maybe take some of the burden off of Chilmark? And, I'm just saying, maybe some money might have to be afforded or the land or what have you. But even if you give a plot of land, who's to say that the person getting it's going to be able to afford to build a house on that plot of land? I don't know if that makes any sense at all. Hopefully somebody understands what I'm trying to say.
I'm not entirely sure what you were trying to say. I think, and maybe this wasn't it at all. I know I have heard that sometimes it's tougher to do an affordable house that you build yourself because quite often the financing can be very difficult to get. And I'm not sure of the ins and outs of that. And I don't know, Pamela, if that's where you were heading or you were heading somewhere else.
Well, I'm just going to speak for myself right now. So I'm pre-approved to buy a home at a certain level, but there's nothing on this island that I can afford right now. And my approval rate is pretty good, I feel, but there's just nothing coming close to what I would be able to afford. So what I'm saying is if there was some way to look at what, it's like a bank does. They look at your income and they look to see what are you able to afford. So I guess just kind of doing it in a different approach.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for X number of houses. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that is kind of what's done as part of the, I think, as part of the lottery process, if lots are being awarded. I think maybe somebody else can jump in who knows this better than me, but I think that there is pre-approval so that someone doesn't get given a lot that they wouldn't even be able to build on. Am I speaking any sense, or somebody bail me out?
Yeah, if I may, Janet.
Please.
Yes, Pamela, I could give you, you're absolutely right. The pre-approval is the key. We've done, the Housing Authority's done lotteries for over 150 home ownership situations across the island in the last 15 years alone. And it's pretty straightforward stuff, income to lending. I could give you those parameters. You could tell me what you're, pre-approved for. I could probably reverse engineer your income from that. So yes, it's very well known. And to the passing point about turnkey versus you build, there was a time when you build was certainly a lot easier. Now it puts it at a higher income, which is totally fine. We need rental and ownership at all incomes right now. But if you're trying to address 80% or 100%, at that point, you're looking at some degree of subsidy from the town, whether, as you say, the land or something further. And that's why the control that goes with building lovely homes, such as are mentioned at Smalley's, and IHT has done wonderful ownership across the island, for instance. And they're very good, super efficient, well-designed, going to hold their value, and they can be price pointed to address the specific needs. Should the town decide we want to do 80 to 120%, you can do that. And very specifically, many people on this call have lots of experience. I'm willing to walk through that with you if you ever want to do that. Please just call me at the Housing Authority. But we'll look forward to doing those lotteries, the rent up lotteries on your rental units, and the qualification lottery for ownership as well. A lot of opportunity here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, David, for answering coherently what I could not. Do you have any more questions, Pamela, before I move on to someone else, or?
No, I was talking with some people at work. I'm only going to say one more thing. The only thing with the lottery, and it's not an only thing, but somebody had just said, you know, it's one thing if we live on the island right now and we know that we're going to be able to access something. Because if you're in a position working for the community and you're unsure if that house or that rental is going to become available to you, maybe 2 years, 3 years down the line, why would we stay? Because it's a risk. What if it's not? So that's all I have to say. But thank you, David, for the explanation and further into that. I understand what you're saying.
Okay, I don't see any more hands.
John Abrams.
Okay, thank you, whoever said that. Go ahead, John.
I just wanted to add, I came in here late and everything I've heard since I came was wonderful and I agree with. That's amazing. I just wanted to add that there's no reason to fear 40B. It's a wonderful tool that has been used on this island beautifully as friendly 40Bs. With the towns, working with nonprofit developers. And what it does is it gives you leeway. Only 25% of the housing units that are built have any control by the state and fair housing laws. The rest of them, it's entirely up to you. And it's a great tool. So sometimes it is the best way to get done what you want and what the community wants, and there's no other way. So don't worry about 40B, use it, and to our advantage.
Okay, thank you, John. Peter, did you have a hand up?
I was going to say I wanted to hear from John Abrams, but
so there you go.
But also, I want to say one thing. This has been really very, very good for us. Just what we've heard so far. We started out with what we considered certain marching orders from our town discussions with the committee and so forth. And I think we've been sort of under the idea that we would be moving towards a fairly modest approach to developing this property. What I'm hearing and what I think is important is to hear the argument for a more substantial, for more action, for a greater use. And the other thing that we need to hear, we haven't heard, we haven't heard from the people who really don't support this idea. And we know that they exist. We know there are reasons, maybe not the people who don't support the idea of affordable housing, but who have real reservations about its working in a town like the People's Republic of Chilmark. And I think we need to hear from the people who have those reservations, who may support the idea in general, but have real reservations about specific ways of pursuing them, because we will have to address those down the road as we get closer and closer to trying to make contact with designers and developers. So thank you so far for everybody in giving us your input so far tonight. This has been very useful.
Thank you, Peter. And as we said earlier on in the presentation, we have gotten letters of support. There's a link on the website that those letters will go to Jen, our admin. If anyone wants to continue to do that, we're keeping track of the input. So, you know, and as Peter said, positive and negative, but take advantage of that means of communicating with us, please. And Allison Perry, I see you've got a hand up.
Hi, thank you so much, Janet. So in speaking to some people I've talked to with maximizing the amount of bedrooms and also to the impact of the environment and also to keeping it minimized, I would employ people to consider, you know, multifamily living, whether we're maximizing the entire square footage, whether we're retrofitting the lower level as a walkout livable space with, you know, kitchens and living space on every level, attached buildings and condoized development so that we're at a whole, you know, diminishing any additional environmental impact. And then as a creative solution, I've spoke to a couple of people about, you know, not strictly thinking about it as a rental or an ownership opportunity, but potentially collaboratively and creatively developing a rent to own opportunity where you provide that, you know, opportunity after 5 years of renting. Maybe there's some equity built in where then you're, you know, committing to an ownership, carrying that overhead costs in your own personal financing, and then also building upon your vested interest in the property, not just as a transient renter, but also as an owner and contributor long-term into this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are great ideas. Well, Christine Flynn of the MVC suggested that I remind everyone that the next two meetings are, the next one is July 26th, and then the third of the three will be September 20th. And they will certainly be widely announced on the website and in the papers as this one was. And as we said earlier, the next meeting, the one that's on the 26th of July, I believe the focus will be on talking about possible combinations of housing, possible looking at things like Smalley's Knoll and Scotts Grove and so on, and talking about some known entities to see if we can take away some great ideas from those. Is there anything else? I haven't seen a new hand go up in a while, but I could have missed someone. Laura, I see you've got a question up about whether it will be Zoom, and I don't really know. I guess the question of how meetings will be conducted in the future is somewhat up in the air. I believe that's a fair statement. So I don't know. I think the Zoom for something like this is a great idea, because we can get, people don't have to leave their homes and turn the camera off and eat dinner while they're listening to us. And I think we get way more involvement. So hopefully we can do it that way, but keep checking the website. As soon as we figure out what we can do and how we can do it, we'll have it up there. Okay, I mean, I think we're done. Karen, do you want to, do you concur? And do you want to give us any last words?
Uh, No, I just think this has been a very productive meeting, and I think on behalf of the subcommittee and the Martha's Vineyard Commission and myself for sure, want to thank everybody for their participation. Very valuable, and hope you'll be part of the next couple of sessions as well. Spread the word to your friends.
Janet, if I may.
Please, Rich.
We all have our gut reactions from our heart about affordable housing and keeping people in the community. I just want to point out that we're very lucky to have the resources of Dukes County Housing Authority and IHT nearby. They have so much expertise beyond our abilities as planning board members that we really depend on. So I just want to say we appreciate their thoughtful input along the way.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah, I mean, I just want to add that I think that the vineyard is blessed by the capacity you have in regard to housing on the island. And that's an important piece. Whether it's the Housing Authority, or the Island Housing Trust, or Harbor Homes, etc. Impressive.
Thank you. Okay, I guess we'll adjourn for the night then. And thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ending the meeting for all. Good night, everybody.
Good night.